Okay, we are now starting another session known as exploratory data review. We talked about these sessions when we handled data analysis plan. Recall that we said that data analysis has many steps involved in it, and one of them is exploratory data review. And what is involved in this stage is for you to get to know your data, to familiarize and acquaint yourself with the data set. And so we are going to use Stata and use one of the data sets of UDHS 206. As I mentioned earlier on, 2011 is available, and 2016 is soon coming out. So the first thing you do is to open Stata if you have it on your computer, and it opens like that. And once you've opened Stata, then you create a log file. You remember from statistical computing that it is always better to have a log file where your where everything you do, the commands you put in, the results that come out of them, the change of variable names and what have you, those things, and generation of new variables, everything you do at the command window is stored in the log file, and that is very important for you to note that. And now what you need to do is you move on this this interface here, and you specifically come to the one, the icon which says log begin, close, or suspend, and so you click on that. And when you click on it, Stata gives you this interface, and this interface, as you can see, the Stata interface, it says save, and now it is asking you the directory where it is going to save your log file. And for the purposes of this illustration, I'm going to save my log file on the desktop. So I click on desktop, and it's asking me which folder. So I create a new folder, and I call this exploratory. Let me call it the course name, HSR 8201. Now I ask Stata to open that folder, and now when it opens the folder, Stata is asking me for the file name and the type. You see, by default it brings this type, which is the formatted log.smcl, which is Stata markup and command language, and you don't need to use that unless you are an experienced programmer. You click on the down arrow and you select the log.log. So your file is a log.log. It keeps your commands as you give them without putting in the Stata markup language, which is mainly for programmers. Then it asks you for the file name. So you give it the file name. You give your log the name. And here I'm going to call it exploratory data review and analysis. I'm going to combine the two. So when I say save this log, you see Stata tells me here that I'm log using. So this is the path of my log file, and it's telling me it is a .log. It is called. My file is under C users, user desktop. It's called HSR 8201 in that folder, and the file name is exploratory data review and analysis, and it ends with .log. Recall that we changed the file type from .smcl to .log, and it is telling me that it was opened. It's a text file. It was opened on 8th of February at this time. Okay, now the other thing you also need to do is to open a do file. The do file is where you keep your commands. Yeah? And even this was taught in statistical computing. So you come here and click on icon for do, and then it opens this interface. Let me make it larger so that people can appreciate it. Then you even before you do anything, you give it a name. You come here and say save as. Then I'm going to go back and put it in the same directory on desktop, and the file name HSR82, which is here. And then I give it a name, and let me see, let me call it Statas. And once I click here, it already saves it. As you can see, it is status.do, and this is a do file. Now, a do file is a file that has all your commands, and there are certain things that you can do with this do file. You can actually annotate it and put in notes. Every time you type an asterisk there, you can actually put in notes and even say status, and you can actually, let me say, my first, my exploratory data review and analysis for UDHS dataset. This should be of UDHS dataset. UDHS dataset, and you can even specify 2011 for course HSR 8201. Now, once you put a star or an asterisk, that command cannot, whatever you're going to write is not going to be interpreted as a command in Stata. Instead, it is going to be interpreted as notes. It's like a notepad that you're writing. And Stata gives the different codes. It gives us different colors. It gives it a green color, as you can see. Then, I can now, first of all, start by saying capture my log, close. This is a very important command, so that all your things you do are going to be saved during when you close your log, and this should be capture log close, and then you put log using. In other words, you are telling Stata that everything I'm going to do, please store it in that log file. And here for log using, you can actually go back here and just copy this whole thing. Just copy this whole thing instead of even typing in the log using. It's already opened. You highlight it, right click, copy, then come here to the do file, which is here. Oops, where did it go? The do file is there. Then you come here and just paste it here, Control V, or you can even go to, file, where is paste? I think it must be somewhere here, edit, and you say paste. And you bring it, because now Stata is point click. And it has, so it is giving you log using. It puts the path of the path of the directory where your log file is. It puts it in the maroon. And Stata uses blue and black for its commands, and it uses maroon for the directorates, for the paths, and it uses green for the notepad. And so you can put here a comma and add append. Append means that if your log file was closed after you've done some things, now when the ones you are going to do here, you want them to be added on to what you last did. You can also use replace, which means that everything else, everything that is in the do file, when it is now being used, everything that was there before should be erased and replaced by what you are going to do, which I don't advise. Then the next thing is to put once you've told Stata log using this in your do file, then you are telling it, you also have to tell it where to find the data set that's going to use. Please note the following. Every time you add something new to the do file, this thing here that looks like a zip file, some of you did not see the zip flash disks. because they are now not being used anymore, but it means save. Everything, every time you have your unsaved data, your unsaved do file, it highlights green. But once you save it, it now goes gray. So when you look at it, it always tells you that you have added some things you have not yet saved since you last saved. And I could add something here just to illustrate. And I put here anesthetics, I put in something for me, and you see it has now gone back to blue. And then I say adding the directorate all path for the Stata file. Now you see, it has gone back to blue, meaning I've added something since I last saved and I've not saved. So I can click here and save it, or I can use Ctrl S if you are DOS oriented, and make sure that every time my do file is actually saved, whatever I've done. So I have the log file, I have the do file, and so now I can go and open the dataset. I can use open, and I look for where the dataset is. In this case, my dataset is in this directory. I'm going to pick it from, it's kind of lengthy because I keep my things in multiple subdirectorates. And so I keep this dataset, and I have DHS datasets. And I can I come here to Stata, and maybe I keep this, I pick this first file, or I can pick this one has so much, but I pick the first file. And of course, the file, it now opens, and once it opens, the next thing I want to do, if my, I have the variable window, I have the view window, I have the command window, and I have the properties. Sometimes, like if you click on the variable, it shows you, the property window shows you something. It shows you that variable V000, it is labeled country code, type is a string variable, and this is its format. So if I click on case ID, it also shows me case ID is a string. So sometimes, most times actually this is important because it shows you the nature of the variable. This shows me that this is what? This is a character, this is a numeric variable, integer variable. So, but sometimes people don't want this window of properties, but because they want to view many variables. But now we are there, what do? We now copy this folder here, this path, okay? Which says use without taking the period, and we put it in our do file, and we paste it here. And now guess what? Things are not okay because they went to another page. So we put them, we remove that arrow and put everything on the same page, and you can clearly see that now the command is in blue and the path is in maroon, and so we now have our do file set. We have the capture log close, we have the log using, and we have the use, which is our the file we are using. And again, you see this save thing, the blue thing is now highlighted, so we can actually save. And now go back to the command window. So before I even tamper with anything to do with this any data set, it is important to review the data dictionary. The data dictionary gives the explanation or the meaning of the variables. It will tell you variable name, case ID. It means the identification number for each participant that was interviewed. And it can tell you this ID is in two formats, or three formats. The first digits represent, maybe the first digit represents the region, the second three digits represents the district, the third digit represents the household, and the last two digits represent the number in the household. I'm just giving an example. So it is always better to go through the data dictionary, and most data managers will send you a data set and an attached dictionary. So when we review the data set, we do what we call exploratory data review. We basically want to know our data. So please take a time to review the data dictionary, get to know what the variables mean and how they were coded. Now, once you've gone through the dictionary, if you choose not to go through the dictionary, which I don't advise, you can actually look at the variables themselves and use the codebook command, but here you don't even need to use it. If you want to know, I click on it, then the properties window shows me the case ID. It shows me, it means the label on it is here, which is case identification, and it tells me it is a string variable, string of length 15, basically. But also the other thing you can do, because here we get to know, we are exploring our data, you can use the browse command. Remember in Stata, the first 3 letters represent the same as the full word. If you can type in browse, or you can type in BRO, the first 3 letters of browse, it will do the same thing. And so you can actually see the case ID comes in a different, you see there is a check digit, then there is a space, there's another digit, there's a space, there's another digit, and the dictionary should be able to explain what each of those represents. And if you look at the country code, it's UG5, and I guess it's the same everywhere because all this data comes from Uganda. And so you look at the variables now, the ones that are string or character, they appear in maroon, and the ones that are numeric appear in black, and the ones that have been labeled, where you put a label to a variable, they appear in blue. And you recall that in the previous session we talked about categorization of variables. And here you can see that these variables are already categorized. And so the categories, one of the categories you can see there is 20 to 24 for V013, and V012, just to say left, is the actual age before it is categorized. And you can actually see this person is 24, so is within this category. This person is 47, is in the category of 45 to 49. But this is categorical data. They've gone through the generation command, generation replace that we saw last time, and all the record generate. And so for you to know your data, to explore the data, those are some of the things that you do. For example, you can also use the command codebook and say, okay, I want to understand these variables, V12 and V13. And as you go through, you will see V12 is talking about, you can widen this, V12 is the current age of the respondent, and V13 is age in 5-year groups. In this case, they made the category width constant. But depending on how you are analyzing your data, for you may not necessarily need to make them 5-year constants. That's why they leave the plain age for you. They also give you the 5 years. So in case you are comfortable with the 5 years, you use. In case you are not, you can generate new categories from the plain age that is not categorized. And so if you say codebook and you click on the variable, please do not type the variables in the command window, because Stata is case sensitive. If you look here and you try to type it in here, and lo and behold, you use a capital V, and then you say V0, instead of 0, even type an O, 0, 1, or 2. And then you do something, Stata will tell you that variable is not found, because it's not there. Its variable starts with small v. And again, if we come back to type, and we type the small v, but instead of 0, we type an O, okay? And we ask Stata. Stata will tell you variable not found. So always, whatever command you give, always just go to the variable window and double click on that variable name. Instead of you trying to type it, double click on it, it will come into the command window. That way, you are not going to be bothered with whether you typed it correctly or wrongly. Just double click on it. And so if you press enter, now Stata brings this interface in the result window. And it now shows you the variable name is here as it appears. The variable label is the current age, dash respondent. The type is a numeric, which you can also get here. It is a byte here, which you can also get in the properties. Then it shows you the range, 15 to 49, and shows you the units. All the units are in one format. And then it gives you the unique values, 35 unique values. And it tells you how many are missing. 0 are missing out of 30,009. It tells you, gives you a quick summary. The mean is 35.0079. The standard deviation is this. It gives you also some percentiles, the 10th percentile, 25th, 50th, which is the median, and the 75th and 90th. And you recall that the interquartile range is 25th to 75th. But that's as far as it can give you. Now, if you want to know details about this command, you ask Stata to summarize it. Say, summarize, and again, we said that summarize in full is also the same as the first three letters, sum. We click on this variable, and we say this time, so let me demonstrate it too. Summarize this variable alone. That is what you get. Not much different from what we earlier on had from the code book. But if you want to get more details, then we say summarize this variable, comma, detail. And now you see, the results are more detailed. We now have from the first percentile to the 99th percentile. We now have the smallest and the largest value. We now have the sum weight. We have the number of observations, which we had before, but now we have the mean, which we had before, and the standard deviation. But now we have other things. We have the variance, we have the skewness, and the kurtosis, which are measures of how data are skewed. So you realize that now we have more details. So this can give you an insight in the age. And so in this data set, the mean age is 35. The median is also 35. The standard deviation is 29 to 42. And the interquartile range, and the standard deviation is 7.96. And I can actually put this summary that I've gotten out of here, I can put it in my notebook, in my log, by putting a star here. Now, Stata is turned into a notepad, and I can now put mean, I type mean with SD standard deviation is equal to, I have the figure there, 35, I could even copy paste it from there, and the standard deviation is 7.96, and then I can 7.96, and then I can say median and the interquartile range IQR is equal, the median is here, the 50th percentile, which is 35, and the IQR ranges from 29 to the 75th percentile, 42. And now I have this information. When I press enter, it is not going to take it as a command. Why? Because I put the asterisk here. And I've done what? I have turned this data into a notebook or not bad. Now I realize this command works good for me, and I even have notes here that I want to take in my do file. So I highlight this command, then I press Ctrl and I highlight something below it, then I right click and copy these things, and then I go and paste them in my do file, because those are things that I like, they have worked for me, and I put them there, and as usual, I save. So I know the command I will run to get this information, and so I've put this as notes for me in my do file. So then I can try to look at the age categories, and I say, I can even first code book it. I say code book this categorical variable, and it will code book it, and it comes with the labels. So, hey, which one did I code book? No, I'm supposed to code book 13. So sorry about that. So if you have the cursor in the command window, when you do page up, it brings back the things that appear here. Page up, it keeps going up. So if I want to bring back this command, I can click on it and it comes, or if I have the cursor here, I can click on page up and it will bring it back. So anyway, let me click on it, and since I want variable 13, I will go back and double click on 13, and then I press enter. And so it is giving me the code book for 13, and it shows there are 436 people who are in category 1. You see, the number of the category is 1, but the label is 15 to 19. And then you go all the way down, so there are 7 categories. Now I can even do a tabulate, and I say tab this variable, and that is what I get. Yeah? So I know the proportion for each category. I know the number, which is presented by frequency, and I have the percentage, which shows me the percentage of proportion for each. So the 15 to 19 comprise only 1.4%. And the ones that have the largest number are 30, largest proportion are 30 to 34, and 35 to 39. Because one is 20.9, and the other one is 19.87, which is also like a 19.9. And then I can try to see and look at this one's completeness of information. I don't know what that is, so I could book it. And of course, if you have in your dictionary, you can also see the completeness. It's a numeric field, and look at how it appears. It has the 1, 2, 3, blah, 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 and that one has month, year, month, age, year, age, you know, and it stands for completeness of information. This one is the result of an individual interview. And again, the dictionary should be able to show you what the result is. And here, it has only one value, completed. So for everybody here, the individual interview was completed. So we don't have any people with incomplete interviews. So what we are doing here, we are reviewing the data so that we get to know. We are exploring the data and reviewing it. Is an exploratory data review. So we know for sure all the 30,090 people have completed, all of them, their interviews were completed. Then we go for day of interview. And the day of interview here is telling us it's a calendar date, and it is in this format of century, month, and what? This is CMC format. And if you are not sure about that, you can always type in Stata. It has a tutorial or help. You say help date, and then it brings out this information about date, and you can see how its dates are, how the dates are put in Stata. And this gives you the summary of the month day Y, and how you can change them depending on the different formats. And you can even click here to get more information. Okay, it says Adobe is required for that, and I don't want to go into that. So okay. So anyway, and then you can see the various data. You can see here ever-married sample, the primary sampling unit, if you are going to use survey, the survey analysis methods, and here it shows you the region. This is something that could be of interest to many of you who are going to analyze this data, because you may actually want to stratify by region, or you may want even to look at regional differences in your outcomes as far as Uganda is concerned. But you can see here we have Central 1, Central 2, Kampala, East, all those. But it's not telling you how many districts are in Central 1 and which ones are those. It's not telling you how many districts are Central 2 and which ones are those. Although it's telling you that Kampala is its own region. And so this is where you now go back to the data dictionary and say which districts you find out. Central 1, what constitutes Central 1? Central 2, what constitutes Central 2? You see, we even have East Central and Eastern. So you want to know, is Jinja the East Central? Is it Jinja and Kamuli and Yigang, or what? What is in there? So this is again where you go back to the data dictionary and you now acquaint yourself with the codes for this variable and also what the detailed data dictionary has for this variable. So basically all you are doing here is to get to know our data, and you can even look for variables here and say, I need to get variables about the sex of the individuals. I can't know which the variable number is. I'm not even seeing it here in the label. But then when you type in sex, it brings here sex of the household head. Okay, every label here that has the word sex in it is going to come, especially if you're using Stata 14 and above. And so reason for not using, we see here recent sexual activity, here sex of household head, and blah blah blah. And then you can now say, okay, I know the sex of household head is what? Is a variable 151. Now if you remove it, it actually goes back to its original arrangement. But I already know that V151 is sex of the household age. So I can come here, depending on the variables I'm interested in, and recall the variables you are interested in are those that you generated in your conceptual framework and data analysis plan. So I can say, okay, code book that variable, and it now shows you clearly that there are only the variables, there are only two unique values, and those are 1 and 2, and 1 stands for males and 2 stands for females, and this is the sex of household head. And now you can see we also have age of household head, but earlier on we also had age, which was not necessarily age of household head. It was the age of a respondent, whoever responded. So V012 is age of respondent, whereas V152 is specifically the age of the household head. So you do this repeatedly to actually find out whether the variables that you need to do your analysis as by the conceptual framework and data analysis plan are in the data set, and if they are there, then what in nature and format are they? Are they string? Are they string or character? Or are they numeric? Were they collected in a categorical form, or do they exist in categorical form, or do they exist in plain raw form, as we've seen for age of respondent? It exists both in plain age as it was collected, but also in 5-year categories. So you are reviewing and trying to understand your data. You are not analyzing anything, you are not changing anything, you are not doing any manipulation of these variables, but you are acquainting yourself with the data set and with the variables. It's just as you are, it is similar to when you are going to rent a house. You go and have a walk through the house. You see how many rooms are there, how many bedrooms, what are the sizes, what are the colors of the bedrooms, and the sitting room, if there is an inside kitchen, if there is an outside kitchen. You look at the compound, you look at the paved part of the compound, the front yard, the backyard, the green, the paved part. So you look at the gate and what you familiarize yourself with the house before you make a decision whether or not to rent it. Yeah? You may not agree or like the color or the paint in some of the places, but for you to know that this is the paint in this area, you've got to go there and see the paint, and then you decide, you say, okay, I will take the house, but I'm going to change the paint. I'm going to change this from this color to this color. Then you discuss with the landlord. So, so acquaint yourself, get to know your data set, get to know your data by doing an exploratory data review. Know the data and know, for example, now here we know that we have age for each respondent, but we also have specifically variable, which is age of household head. Now, the household head may not have been the respondent, or the household head may have been the respondent. And in that case, if the household head was the respondent, then the age and the age of the household head are the same thing because it was the same person. And so all these things that you got to know. And look at this, has telephone. We may want to know how many people have telephone, but before we even analyze that, we want to look at this variable. Okay, it is a byte variable. Has telephone, and so we know it is a byte. What we want to know, how is it coded? And look, now when we go to this numeric variable, it ranges from 0 to 7, but there are only 3 unique values, which are 0, 1, and 7. So even though the range is 0 to 7, we don't have 6, 5, 4, blah, blah, blah. So you can't stop here on the range only to say, oh, it ranges from 0 to 7, and assume that it starts from 0, then you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. No. The range is 0 to 7, but look, there are only 3 unique what? Only 3 unique values. And what are those values? 0, 1, and 7. From 1 it skips to 7. 0 is no, they don't have a phone. 1 is yes, they have a phone. And look at missing, which is a dot. There are 16 people who are missing. So, and this goes back to our previous discussion on missing values. So you now move, you now go ahead to deal with this variable, knowing that there are already some 16 people who are missing, the variable. And you also know that if you tabulate this variable of has a phone, you're not going to get only yes, no, because there is also 7, which means that the person was not the de jure resident, so they didn't get that information. Then look at education status, which is coded 140, 149. Here you can see it is education attainment, it is a byte, and so we can code book it and see, okay, it ranges from 0 to 5, but unlike the previous one, which ranged from 0 to 7, but only had 3 unique variables, this one has 6. So, and the 6 move from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 5. Whereas the other one was 0, 1, and 7. Yeah? So you can't assume by looking at the range, you can't assume that the numbers are going in chronological order. And before you do any analysis, get to know your data. Now, the range is 0 to 5, but there are 6 unique values. They are ascending in order chronologically. Whereas the previous one, which you can bring on the screen here, the previous one, the range is 0 to 7, but there are only 3 unique values, 0, 1, and 7. The subsequent one of educational attainment is 0 to 5, but look, there are 6 unique values, and that's how they are coded. 0 means no education attained at all. 1 means primary but not complete. 2 means primary but complete. 3, secondary not incomplete. 4, secondary completed. And 5, higher than secondary. So you don't just dive into data analysis without knowing your data, and this is exactly what we've been talking about. Exploratory data analysis, it makes you know the nature of the variables, their completeness, the ranges, the codes, and now you move to the next stage of exploratory data analysis when you have good knowledge about your data. So this completes this session on exploratory data review. Please never analyze a data without reviewing it, a data set without reviewing it. First review it, however much time it takes, get to know it, go through the data dictionary, review the data set, get to know it, and acquaint yourself with it before you move into anything that has to do with manipulating those data, which begins with exploratory data analysis that we shall see in the next session. Thank you. Wish you fun. Now, how do you close Stata? You don't just close Stata anyhow. So let's go back to our screen. And now that we've finished here, we want to close our log. By the way, I can do things in the log file that I don't want the log to record. What I will do, I will come here and type in log off. So my log is off temporarily because the things I want to do here, the code book, blah, blah, I don't want them to be logged in. And then I can come back afterwards and I say log on, and it brings back the log. It's now active. Whatever I do in the command window, and the result window will appear in the log. But I can, now that I finished, I can close my log, and I say log close. Now it has closed the log file. Then I can clear this data set in the memory and exit. I can take a 2-step, I can say clear, and then afterwards I type exit, or I can tell Stata, please exit, but as you do so, clear the data set in memory. So I do, instead of do it in 2 stages, I do it once and I say exit clear, and guess what happens? It now closes the data set. It closes Stata the program, but after clearing the data set in memory. And so this ends our session, as I said, of exploratory data review. Exploratory data review is a very important stage of data analysis. It helps you to know the data set before you move deeper into manipulating that data set, as we shall see in the next session of exploratory data analysis. Thank you.